Alright guys, today we're talking about my Romanian TT-33, also known as the TTC. Alright guys, welcome back. If I can get y'all to like and subscribe, that really helps out the channel. I'm trying to get up to 1,000K this year. So give me a hand, let's get there. Today we're talking about my Romanian TTC, or TT-33 pistol. This was, this is a Romanian copy of the Russian Tokarev pistol that replaced the Nagant. This was designed in the 30s. It replaced the Nagant revolver in the 30s as soon as it went into service. And when these went out of service, Russia replaced them with the Makarov automatic pistol. These are still in service and even in production all the way to today. I know Zastava makes new productions of these, and you can probably pop these up, see these anywhere in war zones where Russian surplus is at. So, you know, Bosnia, Middle East, Africa, these things are there. And it shoots the 7.62x25. This is a bottleneck cartridge, and this is the original armor-piercing handgun cartridge. A lot of people think of today as 5.6 as being the, you know, the handgun cartridge that for armor penetration. This is the original. This is what it did. This is a screaming little cartridge right here, and you can see it right here compared to 90mm Luger or 9x19, and then the cartridge that replaced it as Russia and the Com Block Service one, the 9x18. So these can be really hard to find right now. This one here is, I believe, Yugoslavian surplus. And I've shot these. They shoot fine, but they got these little dipples on the neck, and these split when shot, so you can't reload these. See here, I got some Monarch. These are just fine after shooting. These will be able to be reloaded. The cool thing is about 7.62x25 is you can make brass out of 223 or 5.56 brass for reloading. So these are replaced in the Nagant revolver in the Russian service, and of course, you know, they pretty much anything that was a Com Block country that was part of the Warsaw Pact had to standardize with Russia, with the exception of the Polish, who, of course, you know, designed their own gun, which they pretty much heavily copied off of the Walter PPK. So Romania, they went with the TT, the Tokarev, just like most of the other Warsaw countries at the time. I think even Poland had these at the time. It wasn't until the Makarov that it went to they did their own thing. Now, what's cool about these is you can get 9mm conversion kits for these, which is essentially it's just a barrel, and then you can get blocked magazines. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, we seem to be having a magazine malfunction of some kind. There we go. blocked magazines, and what it does is essentially has a different follower and a little block in the back, so that the 9mm sits a little farther forward. Now you can run the 9mm in these cartridges or in these magazines without any modifications. They will work, but I have heard that sometimes they can have nose down issues when cycling and you can get jams. Now, when these were originally made, they had no safety whatsoever, but in order to be imported into the U.S., they were mandatory to have a safety installed on these. So you can see the safety goes on there, and it is a trigger lock safety. Alright, it's a little weird, unless you have really big hands. If you have small hands like me, you have to actually change your grip to get to it. And of course, this is a single action gun, so it is, nothing happens. You got a half cock and a full cock. When these were carried in the military, with the one in the chamber, half cock is where it would be held at. Of course, trigger can't do anything. Now, the TT series and the Tokarev as a whole is pretty much known not to be carry safe with one in the chamber, even with the safety. I still wouldn't advise it. If you have one with the safety, it's safer than not, but I still wouldn't do it on one of these. Takedown on these is pretty similar. The gun is heavily inspired by the Colt 1901 and 1903 automatic handgun, and you can obviously see that from the looks. Now, because of the safety pin they had to add, the takedown clip had to be modified, and this thing is relatively hard to undo. So you usually have to get a tool, get in here and push, get it just off like that. Now, actually, my second handgun I ever had was actually a Norenko Tokarev, and it was much easier to undo that clip. So that's your mag hold and release. It pops out, and then you just slide it forward. Now you have to be careful because the spring is not retained by a rod, so it is a little tricky. Now these Zastava ones I mentioned earlier, their spring is retained by a guide rod, so they are a lot easier to take apart. And then you undo this barrel nut right here, comes off, and then your barrel comes right out the front. Release off the locking lugs, and it comes right out the front. Now, this one is a spring retained firing pin, but as you can see, it is not an over travel pin. So with the press down, the firing pin does protrude out the end. So in theory, if you have one in the chamber and you drop it on the hammer, it could, set off the gun. Generally, this is as much as you would take down the gun for cleaning purposes, and it is numbers matching. The whole gun, the slide, and the only thing that's not numbers matching is the magazine. You can see it's nice and moist, but it's not not dirty. So reassembly is reverse, and like I said, without an operating rod, the spring could be a little tricky to put back in. I believe the Zastava operating rod and spring can be put in any of the Tokarevs. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be able to be. If I can just get this. Tricky. It's probably one of the trickier handguns I've ever owned for reassembly, just because of that spring isn't retained by any kind of guide rod. Okay. thing, or this pin's little. There we go. That pin's stuck. It's a little clunky right now. I'll probably need to clean it a little bit more. But these are known to be. Let's see what's going on here. Okay. Yeah, what is that? Alrighty. Well, I probably need to clean it a little bit more, but this gun has been reliable for me so far. I haven't had any issues out of it. This was a pawn shop find. I think I got it for just under or just over $3. Used to be able to get these things for $150 all day long. Then it was $200. Then it was, $250. The problem is, they're drying up as far as the supplies for the surplus guns. There's still a long gun broker. There's still, I think Atlantic Firearms has some if they haven't all run out. But they're still around here and there. And I believe you can order the Zastava one still. And those are coming into the country here and there. But if you're looking for a neat little piece of kind of military surplus, comm block surplus, firearms history, the Romanians, they're not as sought after as the original Russian ones are, but they're up there. Quality is not quite as good. You can see it has really shallow serrations on the slide for gripping. It's enough, but it's not, they're kind of sharp and shallow. Sights on this gun is real basic notch sights. I'm not sure what they're sighted to. Of course, being a milsurp, the trigger is not anything special. It's actually kind of nasty. I'd say it's like sand, but I probably could clean it up a little bit more and probably get that a little bit more smooth operating. Now for the marks on it, you can see on the front, on the right hand side, no markings. We got the importation marks on the bottom side of the frame, and on the left hand side we have inspection mark, serial number, date 1955, and then on the top of the slide we have the serial number again. And that's it, besides the serial number on the bottom of the magazine. Overall, these guns are real simple. They're just a locking, tilt locking, action. Just like I'm not 100% sure on. I've never really messed with the Colt 1901 or 1903. I do know that this gun is heavily based on it. I'm not sure if those were locking. They might have been direct blowback because of the fact that those were generally in like 32 ACP and 380, and those really old small cartridges that were weaker than 9x18 that are no longer used anymore. So when you're working with a weak cartridge like that, you can get away with a direct blowback. In fact, 9x18 is about the most powerful direct blowback cartridge you want to use in a handgun. Simply because, even this gets kind of snappy when you're, slinging this around. And of course, 9x18 fits kind of in there between 380 and 9mm. Now, I have heard that you can safely cycle 9mm or 380 through a Makarov or a P64. That is something I'm going to be testing one day in the future to see if that is in fact true. Safety wise, it's in theory should be perfectly safe, as 380 is a less powerful cartridge than 9x18, but the question is, will it cycle, is the question. Now, there are some direct blowback guns that are in the 7.62x25. For instance, my Polish PPS 4352 that I have, that is originally supposed to be a direct blowback gun. So but it's got a lot more travel and spring as opposed to what you can fit inside of, a handgun. Now, I do plan on attempting to take a pick with this cartridge. I'm not going to be using the Full Metal Jacket. I'm going to see if I can maybe track down some self-defense loads one day for this. But that's kind of my goal with all my guns, is to at least try to take one pig with each gun. Like I said, it's not anything, it's not a race gun. It's not a high quality gun. The only thing that these guns really have in modern shooting era is collectibility for being a military surplus and somewhat historically significant, and just fun shooting guns. If you can get the conversion kits for these, it definitely makes it a lot cheaper to shoot these. I eventually will be trying to track one down, just so I can shoot it. It's a good thing to have, a gun that can shoot multiple cartridges. I have a buddy that completely, doesn't understand my obsession with multi-cal guns, but, as a hunter and a survivalist, I like, the utilitarian as a multi-caliber gun. But there's not a whole lot to say about these things. I mean, it just works. They're known to be fairly accurate, and they just work. And my philosophy is, I like surplus guns, handguns specifically, because they are made to work. If a gun is made by a military to be used in war, this thing is going to be reliable, because that's what it's made to be. It's also made to be the cheapest possible gun, for its job, but they have reliability standards. If you ever do any research on what the trials, military trials, guns have to go through in order to be approved by militaries, they are far, far greater and more stringent than what regular civilian guns have to go through before they're put on the market. Some of these things, they have to go through 10, 20,000 rounds before they can be considered acceptable for military use. And they have to do that 10 and 20,000 rounds with only a certain number of malfunctions and keeping up a certain amount of accuracy. So generally, the surplus guns are made to be very, very reliable guns. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people kind of gravitate towards surplus guns. They're just going to work. But if you can get your hands on one, if you don't have one, they're still pretty cheap at the moment. They're not going to be like that forever, but go ahead, find one. Pick one up, add it to your collection, throw it in the safe. Even if you never use it, one day they're not going to be around at all. And then they're going to be really valuable. Especially with the way things are going in the world right now. Anything that's a comm block gun, especially from Russia, is going to be really hard to get your hands on. And their price is going to go up as a result of it. But anyways, I'll see y'all guys next time. Next time is going to be a rifle week. I'm not exactly sure what one I'm going to do just yet. But I figured, I did the SKS last week, I keep it comm block and go ahead with the Romanian TT-33c this time. So I'll see y'all guys next time. Be sure to come over here and subscribe. And of course you have to hit the little bell, otherwise we won't show up in your notifications each time we post a new video. And check us out on Facebook and give us a like. We post all of our content there as well, as long as some pictures that we take. Sure, check us out on Patreon. We could always use the support. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up, but that stuff kind of isn't cheap, so every little bit of support helps and will help us get out some good content for everyone to see.